Hey, it's Derek, and we're yet another episode in to Talk with the Badge. Today we're here with Detective Matt Deaux, and I don't know how to say the entire name of the division you work for, but you basically call it like the High-Tech Crimes Division, right? But what is the full name of it?
It's the Sacramento Valley High-Tech Crimes Task Force.
Sacramento Valley High-Tech Crimes Task Force. It's about ID fraud. It's about identity theft. It's about gas pump fraud, people stealing your credit card information at the gas pump. What do they call that when that happens, by the way?
Skimming.
Skimming. And what else do you guys cover as far as crimes go within your department?
Within our division, we cover, again, ID theft. We also associate it with high-tech crimes. So it's essentially if somebody comes across something and they have no idea how to deal with it, it usually ends up on our desk.
So it's not just about stealing people's credit card numbers online and that kind of theft. It's very complicated now because technology is making things a lot harder and a lot easier right at the same time.
Correct. It just keeps advancing and bad guys keep finding new ways to do bad things.
What's the hardest thing that you're fighting right now as far as high-tech crimes go?
It's a lot of different things. Obviously, the skimming is huge. Another big thing that we've been seeing with technology and everybody's associated with their phones is we've seen what we call mass fraud texting. And essentially, it's just setting up a server to send out just like a mass text to thousands of phone numbers.
So it's kind of like a robocall, but for text.
Correct. It's very similar to that. The texts are usually very general. It'll say something along the lines of, hey, there's an issue with your direct deposit at this bank, and it'll give a phone number. And it'll say, to correct this issue, call this phone number. People call the phone number. It's an automated number that it'll call into. It'll say, hey, there's been an issue with your direct deposit. In order to fix this, we just need a few things from you, and all you have to do is enter it into your phone. And then it'll say, we need your card number. Then it'll say we need your CVV number, which is the number on the back. And
the security number?
Correct. And then it'll ask for your PIN number. It is very polite. It thanks you after you enter in each one, so it's very nice of them to be polite that way. But then once they have that information, they'll take that out, they'll clone the cards, and they'll go start hitting up ATMs.
So how do thieves initially get that information? There's a lot of this information is public, right? But what do people do that doesn't help them in the situation, that they give away this information to thieves and they can use it to manipulate to be able to convince them that they're legitimate?
There's a lot of different ways that thieves are going to get information from you. And there's multiple different sources. Mail is a huge source of information about you and whoever else is living in your home. And it's also not very secure. It's very easy to walk down the street and steal mail. That and a lot of these guys know what days of the week to go on, because at certain days of the week is when bank returns or bank receipts come to your home. And all these individuals know this. Another real good source of information, unfortunately, is done by people themselves, the information that you post on social media. Because everybody likes to post, what they had for dinner and what their dog's name is. And social media is great. It's a great means of communication. You just have to realize that once you put that information out there, anybody can access it.
You were explaining to me a real life story without giving details, of course, of the individuals who were victims of this. But you were saying there was a person, a criminal, who pieced together where a family lived based on what they were posting on social?
Correct. It's essentially a YouTube app for children that's designed to make sure that you're not posting certain personal information out there. But kids are just like anybody else. They want to use technology.
Sure.
They want to be their own YouTube star. And so they were posting this information, and this individual was just watching these videos and collecting little bits of information, whether or not they happened to walk by a school when they were filming, or whether or not they were in front of their house, whether or not he caught a street sign. And he was able to put all this information together to get an accurate address for the home,
Wow.
to the point where he was actually mailing letters to them. And it was a very scary individual. He was out of state, and unfortunately another state ended up dealing with him before he got here.
Sure. Do you guys have pretty good communication with outside of your jurisdiction when it comes to processing these crimes? Because obviously when credit card fraud or these crimes are committed, sometimes it's not happening in the city or the county or even the state. So how do you guys deal with that?
Correct. So that's part of what our job is as a task force, is to make sure that we do have that communication with other agencies, not only federal agencies, but other state and local agencies. And part of that is just how we communicate with them. A lot of us go through the same classes, even though from state to state. And so we create ways that we can talk online. So if I run into a problem, there's generally a list of people that I know of in certain districts where I can send them and say, hey, this is my problem. Can I talk to you about it, or can you point me in the right direction where I can talk to somebody that can help me deal with this? So there's a lot of communication going on between agencies, and that's one of the benefits of technology, is the fact that we have set up these listservs where we can communicate with all these other people and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, is anybody else seeing this? Or, hey, I'm having an issue with this kind of computer or this kind of phone, can somebody help me out with this?
Why do you think that, what do you think is going on in the mind of somebody who is a victim of these scams, who get, called up or texted and they say, they pretend to be a legitimate person or institution or organization, and they convince that person, and that person ends up falling for it? What do you think is going on in the mind of the victim at that point?
From my opinion, there's two generally driving emotions that are going to control that. And one of them is either going to be greed, and the other one's going to be fear. And so it's not like this is the first time that people are coming up with these schemes. We've caught these individuals before where they literally have a script sitting in front of them when they're on the phone of what they say, when they say it, and if the person says this, then they say this. So it's very scripted, and they want to make sure that either one of those two emotions is going to be the overriding emotion. They either want you to think that, hey, this money is going to be great, so that greed kicks in, and you're like, man, I can't pass this up. I could really use the money, and that's what they're counting on. Mm-hmm. By the same token, they want you to be scared out of your mind when they're doing these calls, because they want that fear to be that driving factor that's going to force you to do what they want you to do as soon as you can.
Right.
We have audio clips of these people on the phone where they'll do anything up to and including, you'll hear sirens in the background, and they're telling these people, hey, the cops are on their way right now. They're going to be knocking on your door any minute. And it's silly when you sit there and you listen to it, because me as an officer, I listen to it and I'm like, I cannot believe that this works, but it does.
Well, this happened to a friend, my best friend actually, who lives outside the state in Georgia. And I thought, I'm like, what were you thinking? You have common sense. How could this have happened to you? But they put him in such a state of fear that he ended up, I think it was a scenario where somebody called him and said, we're going to arrest you if you don't give us money. And he believed it, and he ended up buying a gift card and sending it to them, and he got scammed.
Correct.
And it's shocking that people fall for that, but until you're on the other side of it, I guess you don't know how much fear actually really works.
Yes, and the thing about it is once you start getting into that loop of fear, it's really easy for you to give out information that you don't need to. A very specific example, I had, my aunt was called, and they basically said, your nephew's been hurt, he's in the hospital. They didn't give a name, they didn't provide any information, but my aunt knows what I do.
Sure.
And she just sat there and went, okay, well, they gave me this information, so it must be,
legitimate.
It must have been Matt.
Right.
And so she called my mom, and she was terrified. She goes, what happened to Matt? I just got a phone call that he's in the hospital, he was at work. And so she thought the worst, and then it got worse because my mom called me, and I started laughing because I'm like, that's hilarious. It's all bogus.
Sure.
I'm like, you got it. And then I had to call my aunt and make up for it. But
well, we are so attached to our phones.
Correct.
Everybody is, and people think that they're really safe. That the lock code on their phone is going to keep them safe from people getting into it. That everything they do and they say and every website they go to, that nobody has any idea. No, there's no way that anybody can break into that. And people boast about encryption and all these things. But what do you think is the number one mistake that people are making when it comes to their phones that's exposing them to this kind of theft and fraud?
Obviously, a lot of it is the communication that they're sending out. The amount of information that you're sending out from your phone, they don't always realize what all is associated with that information. Essentially, you could be on vacation and you're taking pictures of yourself on vacation. You're like, hey, look how nice Hawaii is. Depending on how secure that information is when you send it to Facebook, I could look at it and be like, you're in Hawaii? Okay, well, I'm going to find out where you live and I'm going to go burglarize your house.
Right.
And by the same token, we've gone into where there is so much information that everybody tries to find that Wi-Fi hotspot.
Sure.
And then you have to think about, well, how secure is that hotspot? Whether or not anybody can listen in essentially to that information while I'm on that hotspot. If there's no password on that hotspot, anybody can monitor what the traffic is going on that. And so it's one of those things where you have to realize what is secure and what is not secure. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people realize that. I don't think a lot of people realize they just like, oh no, I'm plugging into a hotspot, nobody can see what my phone is doing.
Sure.
And the unfortunate truth is, no, a lot of people can see what you're doing.
So, let's say I'm in Hawaii and I'm on Facebook. Hey, everybody, I'm in Hawaii. That tells a criminal he's not home.
Correct.
They go to the house. They look in the mailbox. That's a big thing. You were telling me not only will thieves go into your mailbox, they'll go way beyond that. You said in one case that somebody stole a car and did what?
We've had instances where everybody thinks that the giant steel mailboxes where it's got like a community mailbox.
Yeah, which is what I have where I live.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's a giant steel mailbox that's posted in the cement, and you think, okay, that's pretty secure.
Right.
There are ways that you can easily unlock those, unfortunately. And if you don't really want to unlock it, you go steal a car, you crash into it, and you throw it in the back of the car and you drive away.
And that literally happened. That's a story.
We've had it happen more than once.
Wow. So when it comes to protecting your home, you're on vacation, like I said, you're on Facebook, you're letting everybody know that's number one. You should be careful about what you post and be careful about what your kids are posting. Ask them questions, know what they're doing online, of course.
Correct.
That's something that we talk about all the time. What about the home? Are you a proponent of Nest cameras and security systems and leaving on the lights? What's the most effective way?
I'm a huge proponent of technology. I'm like anybody else. I like anything that's going to make my life easier. If I can, happen to be watching a good movie on TV sitting on my couch, I don't want to have to get up and turn my thermostat up. I want to be able to put it on my phone and be like, I'm cold, I want it hotter.
Right.
And so all this stuff is great. Again, it's how secure is that information?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not changing the factory set passwords, if you're not changing your password every 6 months, if your password is your dog's name or your cat's name or whatever your pet's name is, that's not a secure system. And so that makes it possible where people can actually go onto your Wi-Fi device and they can see the traffic, and then they can interact with those devices. And that's where you have stuff that happens where, you hear the stories about somebody saying, hey, I was sitting at home and all of a sudden a voice started talking to me from Alexa or from whatever the device happens to be, because they were able to gain access it through my network router. Because it wasn't secure, because the factory settings on it I never changed, because my password wasn't secure. And so again, it's that technology is great, but we need to make sure that we understand the technology that we're using.
Sure.
And we need to make sure that we're using it in a safe and a secure manner.
So, technology is so interesting. It gives us so much opportunity to learn things and to share things, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword because you're really exposing yourself a lot.
It is very much a double-edged sword. Again, like I say, I'm a huge proponent of technology. I love what it can do. I love the fact that it makes certain things that I do much, much easier. But you have to understand that somebody else might understand that technology better than me and might be able to use that technology against me.
Sure. Detective, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to the Badge. We do episodes like this all the time for things that are going on in the community. And of course, with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, we appreciate them for all the work they do and their service. Thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care. If you want more information on what you heard today, just go to sacvalleyhightech.com. That's sacvalleyhitech.com, and you can get more information on everything you heard today with Talk with the Badge.